and let's talk about the crisis being faced by farmers in India as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. We are always so eager to talk about how farmers are the backbone of the country, but government after government has failed to address their issues in a meaningful manner. Long before COVID-19 disrupted our lives, the agrarian sector was in a deep crisis, the most glaring aspect of this being the number of farmer suicides in India. With pandemic disrupting the agricultural circles, the situation is likely to get worse. And what has the government's response been? 2,000 rupees for farmers in April. We'll discuss the huge hole in the government's agrarian policy, but here is some context ahead of that. The total number of COVID-19 cases in India is at 748 with 660 active cases. 20 people have died. As of Wednesday, the government continued to insist that there was no community spread. Yesterday, after much delay, the finance minister announced a 1.75 lakh crore relief package. For 3 months, those covered by the National Food Security Act will get an additional 5 kilos of wheat or rice for free. 1 kilogram of pulses will be provided per household, and Ujjwala scheme beneficiaries will also get free LPG cylinders for 3 months. Poor senior citizens, widows and the disabled will get an ex gratia of 1,000 rupees. Women Jan Dhan account holders will get 1,500 over 3 months. The daily wages of NREGA workers have been increased by 20 per worker. It's a bit unclear how the wages will be dispersed considering a lot of work has been suspended due to the shutdown. The centre will also provide medical insurance for 22 lakh health workers. However, these moves have been criticised by the opposition as being inadequate. Congress Chief Spokesperson Randeep Singh Surjewala asked if it was not too little, and CPIM General Secretary Sitaram Yechuri said it is inadequate and would defeat the entire purpose of the community spread of the novel virus. Earlier, the AIKS and AIAW, that's the All India Kisan Sabha and the All India Agricultural Workers Union, had made a series of demands to the Prime Minister to address the issues faced by farmers. These include immediately declaring rupees 3,50,000 crore to provide rupees 5,000 assistance for 1 month for food and livelihood security to 70 crore adult citizens and free ration for all provisions to all households for 6 months. The organization also demanded that the harvest of standing crops be declared an essential service like Kerala has done, and the provision of harvesting equipment and supply seed for the coming season be free of cost. They also asked for a moratorium on recoveries of crop loans and all loans under different schemes for at least 1 year. We have with us Vijoo Krishnan, Joint Secretary of the All India Kisan Sabha, to discuss these demands. Thank you, Vijoo, so much for joining us. Vijoo, to start with, could you tell us what has been the response, what is your organization's response especially to the package that was announced yesterday? One of the key announcements was that nearly 2,000 rupees, that's around $150, would be given to farmers in the month of April. And there was also announcements of provisions of rice, of pulses and gas, that's cooking gas being supplied to the farmers, to poor people across the country. But I think that there's been a lot of discussion about how this is inadequate. So could you talk a bit about it?
I think it is too little and too late. These should have come before the Prime Minister's address and before the lockdown. These things should have been put in place in a much more inclusive manner. Right. That has not happened. Here, the talk of 2,000 rupees going to the farmers, you see the numbers itself. Earlier, they had mentioned that 14.5 crore farmers would benefit from the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi. But now what is happening is the number given is something like 8.7 crores. Almost 6 crore farmers have just vanished. I don't know how these numbers they have got to. The other thing is already this 2,000 first installment was due for the farmers. It's nothing new. So what we have demanded is that the entire 6,000 should be immediately given. And there should also be that the farmers should be provided with free seeds for the next season and so on. There are such demands that we have made. Right. For the agriculture workers also, it is just a 20 rupee increase. And it is every year there is some increase which is being made. But here you find this 20 rupees is pittance. We have made a specific demand that use the unemployment wage clause within the Rural Employment Guarantee Act and then provide all agricultural workers at least 300 rupees per day. Right. That is the demand that we have made. There are issues regarding the ration and so on. Also, the quantity has to be increased. The pulses, there is 1 kilo for a family is not enough. You need to also include other things, like essentials like cooking oil, then vegetable oils, I mean, and then also sugar and salt and such things into the ration system.
Right.
One, it is very important to ensure that while the pandemic itself has reached a dangerous proportion, we must also ensure that hunger doesn't emerge as a even bigger killer.
Right. So another key question is the fact that from the reports you have received so far, what has been the actual impact on the ground on farmers' livelihoods, especially with the harvest season coming up and the issues in transport? We've already heard reports of farmers being unable to sell some of their produce and general chaos, especially in the rural areas.
Actually, you see in large parts of India, this is the almost nearing harvest of wheat, harvest of different kind of pulses. For instance, chana gram is being almost for harvest, chili, different crops. And there is also the issue of the perishables like milk, fish, fruits, vegetables, and flowers. There is absolutely no possibility because of this lockdown that has been implemented. And farmers require this harvest to be done. Otherwise, the entire investment, toil and capital over the last almost a year, that goes down the drain. That is one issue. And the Kerala government has come with an innovative scheme which talks about how harvesting of paddy is treated as an essential service, and the government will assist in ensuring that the farmers' standing crops are not destroyed. Here now we are faced with the threat of these standing crops being destroyed because already unseasonal rains have led to a damage of lot of crops, and farmers are facing the threat of wild animals, stray cattle, damaging these crops. This is also an issue. So we have demanded that there should be a relaxation of the lockdown, and with proper protocol being ensured, there should be allowing of harvest for the farmers. There should be marketing also facilities because milk and other perishables. It is you have to sell immediately. So the government should put in place something to ensure. Otherwise, the country is going to stare at a much bigger crisis of a bigger magnitude, where people would be starving to death.
Right. And there's also the issue of credit and debt I think a lot of the steps of the government also seem very short term, as in their immediate say handing out cash, for instance. But what about the question of the long term agricultural cycle itself, especially considering the nature of the crisis in India?
See, actually, even the announcement of 1,70,000 crores or around $23 billion, we have been demanding in the interim, within a month, to every individual 5,000 rupees. That would come to more than double of the package announced for the entire country yesterday. The other thing is you require to help the states, a financial package for the states to address the issues of the farmers, the agriculture workers, migrant workers. You are having a huge crisis where the migrant workers are just left to fend for themselves. Nothing is being done by the central government, and even many state governments have actually failed. I think a successful model has been in place in Kerala. You have lessons to learn. This is not time for political bickering. One has to learn lessons from successful models. You have to have a longer plan. It cannot be just an interim 1 month or 2 months. Certain things which have very clearly come out now, the need for nationalizing health facilities, that is something which is very important. The need for much bigger investment in rural development and agriculture itself, that is something which is required. These also have to come into the narrative, though it is in the long run. These are surely issues which have to be taken up. Organizations like ours have been making these demands. We are going to further try and impress upon this government to be much more sensitive. This cannot be addressed only as a health epidemic, and lockdown alone is not the answer. It has to be accompanied by a series of other measures which cannot be just short. It has to continue in the long run.
Thank you so much, Vijoo, for talking to us. Our next story is about the issues being faced by the disabled during this crisis. Even in normal times, this section of our society faces governmental neglect and great difficulties in access. And these are no ordinary times. As we mentioned earlier, the government has announced a one-time amount of Rs 1,000 for the disabled, but many organizations have criticized this. The National Platform for the Rights of the Disabled has termed it grossly inadequate, especially since it will be dispersed over 3 months. It has demanded that an amount of Rs 5,000 per month be paid to all disabled persons till the crisis is over. We talked to Muralidharan V of the platform to discuss the issues faced by the disabled and their demands.
In conditions like this, the disabled are more vulnerable. Many have a compromised immune system. Pulmonary function in people with spinal cord injury, muscular dystrophy, and many other conditions are very weak. Physical distancing may not be practical for those dependent on caregivers for their needs, those who need assistance even for the basic daily needs, including sanitation and hygiene. People with visual impairment need to feel and touch various surfaces, and those who are deafblind, for them things are much more difficult. For people with hearing impairment, unless things are communicated in a mode and manner which is accessible to them, it is useless. People with thalassemia, for instance, they need periodic blood transfusion. There is a huge and tremendous shortage of blood in blood banks. Their lives are in danger even otherwise. When curfew is imposed and people are unable to move out of their homes, what about essential supplies, medicines, etc.? When work from home is being given as an option, which disabled have been demanding for a very long time, a visually impaired employee in Indian Overseas Bank, I just got called this morning, called me this morning to say that she has been called by her office to attend office today. So work from home, despite being an option, she is being denied that this thing. She'll be facing various difficulties to reach her home. She will need people to assist her. She will need a caregiver or whatever. So there are various issues that are involved even when we talk about work from home. What would be the approach that will have to be adopted while dealing with people with disabilities? First would be the principle of equality and non-discrimination. These should be the guiding principles. The disabled should not be considered as people unworthy of living. Because in the instance of Italy, that is now actually coming to the fore, people with disability and people elderly are not receiving treatment on par with others. When it comes to the usage of ventilators or ICU beds, they will be denied, and those with able-bodied or those younger people will actually admitted and given treatment. Second, information is one of the keys to fight the pandemic, but this information should be available in accessible formats. Kerala, for example, was the first state in this country to bring about a video in sign language. It is accessible for persons with hearing impairment. Other states need to follow. PDF is not accessible for persons with visual impairment. Many softwares are unable to read PDF files. They should be made available in Word or text files. For other disabilities as well, accessible format, information in accessible format should be provided. Awareness on sanitizing, aids, appliances, wheelchair, crutches, etc. also needs to be provided. Access to healthcare facilities as also quarantine facilities, whether those facilities are accessible, also needs to be taken care of. As far as basic needs are concerned, many people with disabilities are unable to go out of their homes and make purchases. They are unable to access things online purchases. So for them, doorstep delivery of both essential essential goods as well as medicines, oxygens, etc. needs to be ensured. For those dependent entirely on caregivers, there are various people with disabilities who are entirely dependent on caregivers. For such caregivers who are not staying at their own houses, or have to come from somewhere else, curfew passes need to be provided on an urgent basis. People with thalassemia and such conditions who need constant or periodic uh, blood transfusions, such it should be ensured that they receive timely blood for transfusions. And people with mental illness, their conditions might have worsened during such period with flood of information and misinformation. Many of them would have their anxiety levels going up. So counseling, facilities for telephonic counseling should be made available. Some NGOs have started the services, but it needs to be provided in the government sector as well. A volunteer base, database of volunteer has to be created right from the panchayat level onwards, upwards, so that volunteers would be available to make these services available to people in need, people with disabilities. There is a need to increase the pension for persons with disabilities that is being provided at the moment. Kerala took the initiative of advancing 2 months pension to the elderly, disabled, widows, etc., and disabled also. Delhi had followed it up. Other states also need to follow it up. At the same time, there has to be an enhancement in the amount that is also provided to given this emergency situations. Employees with disabilities who are employed in public sector undertakings, etc., who should be given the option of work from home, and they should not be asked to attend offices, whatever be the emergency situation. These are some of the measures that we would suggest in this period, while confronting such a grave situation before the country and the world. Thank you.
That's all we have in this episode of Let's Talk. We'll be back on Monday with the latest news developments of the day. Until then, keep watching NewsClick.